Hi there. Today's episode is a must listen for every parent who has ever felt like they're running on fumes. Not just physically, but emotionally and relationally. We are diving into something that doesn't get talked about enough, even though it erodes connection, intimacy, and joy in parenthood. Overstimulation. We will be talking about the kind of overstimulation that shows up in daily life. Not just the exhaustion, but also the resentment, the disconnection, and even the distance from the people that we love. My guest today, Sara Sandland, is here to talk to us about how overstimulation impacts our relationship with our partners, and more importantly, how to start shifting it sustainably without needing to overhaul our lives or add more on our to-do lists. We will talk about the misunderstood signs of maternal overstimulation, and some of them may surprise you. How overstimulation creates a loop of disconnection in your relationship and how to break it. Simple nervous system and wellness practices that help us parents reclaim our energy and our sense of identity, as well as what our partners can do, yes, this one is gold, to help restore connection without falling into the who's doing more trap. Now, before we begin, I want to introduce you to Sara. Sara Sandland is a certified health and wellness coach who specializes in maternal well-being and the motherhood experience. As the founder and owner of Notably Well, Sara helps moms improve their energy, overstimulation, overwhelm, fulfillment, relationships, and more through feasible and sustainable adjustments in their lifestyle, behaviors, and mindset so that they can feel and function like themselves again and experience the very best of motherhood. As a mom herself, she understands how postpartum shifts in the body's functioning, coupled with life changes that come with motherhood, can affect maternal health and wellness in many ways. She also understands how difficult it can be for moms to find the time and energy to navigate the journey involved in addressing these impacts. She is passionate about supporting moms in identifying and addressing their roadblocks and empowering them to take their health and wellness journey into their own hands so that they can thrive in motherhood. Sara is compassionate and thoughtful, and I have a feeling that what she says today will resonate with you. Maybe even crack something open. Here is a journal prompt that I want you to consider before you begin listening. In what moments do I feel most overstimulated? And how do I react when I reach that limit? Let that be a thread that you follow as you listen in on this episode, which, by the way, is the 4th episode in our July series. And remember, for all my newsletter subscribers, I will be sharing one exclusive tool, one insight, and one follow-up 3-minute reset that you can use to apply what it is that we discuss here today. As always, it will follow your rhythm, your relationship, your needs. If you're not on my Sunday Reconnect love letter, then go ahead and sign up at markelikaplani.com/newsletter. All right, let's get into it. Hi there. If this is your first time here, welcome to the Parenthood and Relationship Podcast. I'm your host, Markella Kaplani, a psychologist, a parenthood and relationship coach, and a parent myself. Together, we explore the transformative journey of parenthood and its profound impact on our relationship with ourselves, our partners, and our children so that we can be present and show up as we envision without having to do more. Let's get into today's episode. Sara, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really admire the work that you do and appreciate your positive, empowering energy around the very important topic of relationships and parenthood. So I'm excited to be here to chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure that our audience has a lot to gain. But before we begin our conversation, I would like to give you the floor so that you can introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Sara Sandland. I'm a certified health and wellness coach. I specialize in helping moms physically and mentally rebalance from the many physiological changes that happen postpartum and throughout motherhood. So more specifically, I help moms holistically improve things like energy, overstimulation, overwhelm, fulfillment, fertility, weight management, and more, so they can feel and function like themselves again and thrive in motherhood.
That's wonderful. And I wish I had something like that at the postpartum stages. When my son was just a baby, I think it would have helped a lot. And so I think that this is going to be something that hits home for a lot of moms who are listening. And I want to get into a lot of the things that you mentioned, but I'm honing in on overstimulation for now. And I'm wondering, how can I tell if I am overstimulated in daily life as a mom?
Yeah, it can show up a little differently for each person, which means there's many ways that it can present itself through your mood and behaviors. But some common ones are being more reactive or easily triggered. So, for example, if you're feeling just instantly unable to handle it the second your kid starts having a tantrum, or being super eager to just have some peace and quiet in your own space, or finding yourself getting onto your kids for minor inconveniences like accidental spills or loud noises. You can also feel touched out physically. So where just anything touching you feels like it's invading your personal space, it feels overwhelming and it's triggering a reaction in you. You can also feel just agitated, irritable, on edge, just like you have a short fuse, and feeling overall just less resilient. So where you feel like maybe you just can't take things in stride or in a calm way like you used to. An interesting one too is you could process overstimulation in the opposite way. So some moms will retreat or shut off or shut down. Overstimulation is really just coming from the fact that your body is getting too many stimulants combined with the fact that your body just doesn't have the resources, energy, or nervous system regulation at this time to be able to handle those stimulants. So you're left with little to no capacity to calmly handle those stimulating events.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective to think about it the other way, that you could shut down because of the overstimulation. And it sounds fair because it could be kind of like a survival mechanism so that you can preserve the very little energy that is left, the very little focus that may be left. I think it's pretty clear what it does in terms of the relationship to our children if we're overstimulated like that. So either if we're snapping or if we become distant. So of course, that's going to cause some kind of a rift in the relationship and the connection. It's going to cause things that are normal, they happen, but that need some repair. I'm also wondering, how does that affect the relationship with the partner? So if I am overstimulated in daily life and obviously I'm finding motherhood difficult, how is that affecting my relationship in turn?
Yeah, great question. And it's super common too for moms to not even realize necessarily how much their overstimulation is affecting their relationship, but it can cause you to not have any energy left in the tank to focus on your relationship or to make that extra effort to keep dating them, right? So overstimulation can also contribute to feelings of resentment. So maybe you feel like you're getting way less sleep than your partner, or that the mental load of parenthood is falling mostly on you. And it can also contribute to feeling a lack of fulfillment, which can further lead that exhaustion and resentment that you may be feeling. And you're really just also in survival mode and prioritizing your child or children, as you should. So your relationship with your partner can unintentionally go on the back burner because it just doesn't feel as urgent as caring for a child. Because of that, you may, after all of that, you just may not have the bandwidth left to also invest in your partner. And also, if feeling touched out is one of the ways you experience overstimulation, like we were just talking about, your physical intimacy can be difficult because the mom may just want to have her own body and space back during this time. And lastly, if your overstimulation manifests for you as that retreating or shutting down, you can also appear to your partner as closed off or unapproachable or simply disinterested, which can affect your partner's interpretation of how you feel about them during this time.
But I'm assuming that we want to be in relation to our partners. So we are, on the one hand, touched out. We are not going to prioritize the relationship because we are conserving energy, because we may need some space, because it may feel difficult in that moment in time, like too much, like an extra task. But I'm assuming, and I would like your take on this, our both partners interested, do you find, in coming back to the relationship in the way that it used to be?
Yes. And this is what's ironic about it, really, is both partners almost always want the exact same thing, which is to feel that connection again. The partner of the mom just wants their partner back, and the mom wants herself back too. She's probably not loving how she's currently acting or showing up in her relationship either. So they're both wanting to feel connected again, but they're just experiencing those frustrations in different ways. So to look at the mom first, the mom can feel misunderstood or unappreciated, unsupported, all of which can build resentment toward their partner. But you'll notice that everything I just mentioned there could greatly be helped if they felt that connection with their partner again and not so isolated or like they're carrying most or all of the mental load of parenthood. And even if the partner is helping a lot, the changes that the mom are going through physically, hormonally, mentally, emotionally can be super overwhelming and feel so much heavier to her than what their partner may be able to pick up on externally. She's also often feeling frustrated and distressed herself about how she's showing up in motherhood and in her relationship with her partner as well. And if you look at it from the partner's point of view, even though there's so much complexity going on beneath the surface for the mom, because of what I just mentioned, the partner is only seeing those symptoms coming out of that. So the irritability, the rage, agitation, however that's manifesting for the mom. And that can come across as the mom just constantly nagging or being annoyed with them or disappointed in them or completely uninterested in them. So, they're receiving all of that, even if they are working hard to support the mom and to share in the parental load, which can make them also feel unappreciated or even unseen in the efforts that they are making. So there's also this drastic shift. The mom's focus away from the partner is another aspect, and one that's commonly talked about as well. And they're moving that attention toward the child now. And that can make the partner feel less valuable or less loved or of less importance during this time. And especially if the mom's feeling touched out, and that's one of their symptoms of the overstimulation they're feeling, and they're saying no to physical intimacy, that can feel very personal and harsh to the partner as well and worsen these feelings.
You said something very, very interesting, and I'd like to circle back to that. You said that a mom may be feeling resentful and misunderstood and isolated, and that this could be because of the lack of connection, but it is the connection that will help her feel this way. So it's kind of like a loop, and it begs the question, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? So if I am feeling this way and if this loop is happening, how do I start to address it? Because if I'm feeling misunderstood and so I'm disconnected, and if I'm disconnected, then I'm feeling even more misunderstood, it could sound to someone like, okay, there's no winning here. It just keeps on, downward spiral kind of thing. So how do we get out of that? What would you suggest?
Yeah. So one of the great tools that I would recommend is starting to have regular proactive communication with your partner. So not waiting until things feel really hard or blow up, but making it kind of a staple in your day-to-day or week-to-week. And I can walk through some steps of what that could look like too. So you want to have a calm and candid conversation during a time when both of the partners are calm and content, and ideally when the kids are in bed or otherwise occupied and being taken care of. It's just a situation where you can give each other your undivided attention. And both partners should come into that conversation with as much understanding and patience as possible. Try reminding yourself that you're on the same team. You both want the same thing. You want to reconnect. And you have so much love for each other, even if that hasn't been the prominent emotion being shown lately. And each partner should make sure that they're being heard on how they're feeling. And what's helpful too is making sure to touch on overstimulation specifically and help each other understand your experience with it. So moms can share what they're feeling in those moments and what her triggers are. And the partner can talk about how that overstimulation is being received by them and how it's impacting them. And then from there, you can come up with a game plan together. And it doesn't have to be a solve everything on the first try or in the first conversation kind of plan. At least a first step in, how you may want to change up your routine or your mindsets or your attitudes toward each other to help manage that overstimulation and move toward reconnecting. And then maybe the most important part of it is to actually follow up with regular check-ins after that. So continue building on that initial plan that you've come up with together. Be teammates with a shared goal. Sometimes a ton can be helped in that first conversation because maybe there's just things that haven't been spoken and frustrations that have been lingering that once finally aired can maybe just turn out to be a misunderstanding and an easy fix. Or other times progress is slower, and that is great too. The important part is you guys are working together and moving in a direction where you're both feeling heard and you're both, doing what you can to help the relationship. All to say, feeling heard and understood and appreciated can do wonders on the health of your relationship, but that has to continue. Those conversations have to continue to help prevent any new resentment or misunderstandings from building back up.
I completely agree. And I like what you said in terms of talking about one's own experience, because I think that we hear all of this advice and it's very difficult to follow it exactly as it is meant. A lot of times we show up in these conversations and what we do is we air our demands. I would like you to be more this way. I would like you to be more that way. And while it is very important that we have that kind of conversation and I will tell you my needs and you'll tell me your needs, what happens after that is that we start to subconsciously assess, did you do what I asked you to do? And then you're thinking toward me, but did you do what I asked you to do? And it turns out to be more disappointing than it is helpful. So when they end up coming to me, they are saying, well, we had this conversation. I said what I needed. It's pointless to be having these conversations because they don't do it afterward. And I end up feeling even more disappointed. And every time I feel like there's even more distance built. So I actually avoid these conversations on purpose to salvage the relationship. And so I really like what you said about making sure to describe how it feels for me, because then that is where the real hearing can begin. So when I say, look, I'm not blaming you for doing this or for not doing that, but what I am experiencing is this overstimulation. It's too much in my head. And my intention is to connect with you. I get it that it may look different on the outside, but this is how I'm feeling. That creates a completely different conversation. And it turns off the defenses and we can really listen to one another. So I would love for everyone to really pay close attention to that part of what you said, because it's the most important thing and it can make all the difference.
That is such a great point. And you're so right, because when you're talking about yourself and your own experience, it's almost impossible to be on the attack, right? Because you're focusing just on what's true for you. And you're not making assumptions about the other person. You're not making demands, like you said. It's very personal. And when you're also coming to that conversation with strong intent and commitment to listen to how the other person is feeling, you're going to learn a lot, really, from that conversation. Because a lot of what you may be thinking is going on in your partner's mind, or, what they feel they need, or how they're experiencing the overstimulation specifically, could be very different than what's actually happening. So having that listening ear and focusing on what's true for you and coming together in that conversation is truly the perfect recipe for making that progress.
Wonderful. I'm also thinking that each of us is coming into this conversation with our own past, our own assumptions, and whatever it is that our experience is, like you said. And so since we began this conversation talking about overstimulation, while it is 100% valid that I'm probably overstimulated as a mom, and it's completely normal, and it's a valid reason why I may be disconnected from my partner because of this overstimulation, while I may be talking to them about it, isn't there something that I could do to help the situation myself to start to regulate a little bit? Because if I start to lessen my overstimulation, then it creates a little bit more room for reconnecting with my partner without, of course, to mention that again, if it wasn't clear, that when it does happen, it's not my problem to solve, but it is something of an obstacle that's getting in the way. And so if you could give us a few tools that could help the average mom with the lack of time, the lack of energy, and a lot of times the lack of will to be able to do much, but she really wants to feel better for her children and to connect with her partner, what can she do to lessen that intensity of overstimulation that is causing that negative ripple effect?
Yeah, and you're right. It's such an unfortunate situation, but so common. And the great news is there are many things that you can do to help. So I'll answer this in two parts. The first part being what you can do in the moment. And then in the second part, I'll talk about in general what you can be doing to help your body rebalance, help get it what it needs so that you're less of that overstimulation to begin with. So for the first part of in the moment, I actually have a free resource called the Overstimulated Mom's 3-Step Guide to Reclaim Resilience in Moments of Overwhelm. And that free resource can help with exactly this, because it can be super hard to recenter when you're experiencing overstimulation and to pull yourself back out. And so this guide will help you walk through how to take back control in those moments and to ground yourself so that you can re-engage with your partner. And it also includes examples of how to apply each step, as well as explanations of their positive impacts on the nervous system.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah. It's great. And it's really helpful because, like I said, when you're in it, you're not thinking like you normally would. You feel stuck. Any additional stimulant that's getting thrown in onto the pile, when you're already feeling that way, it can just feel overwhelming. So it can be hard to know how to pull yourself out. So yes, I think this guide will be super helpful in those moments. But for more long-lasting or long-term impacts and improvements so that you can experience less overstimulation to begin with and avoid having to constantly feel like you're managing your overstimulation, my biggest tip is to do the work on yourself to support your body and give it what it needs, because your body has gone through a lot. And there's a lot of changes that have happened that you can help your body address and recover from in that postpartum period and throughout motherhood. So focusing on helping your body holistically rebalance, both physically and mentally, will do wonders. Because when you're able to lighten that load on your body, that's when you're going to get the bandwidth and the capacity back to handle any other challenges and stimulants that come up that are out of your control, which, as we've discussed, will do wonders for your relationship and your ability to connect with your partner. More specifically, this can include things like focusing on regulating your nervous system, balancing your hormones, lowering inflammation, improving your gut health, replenishing nutrient stores, lowering your toxic load, and restoring your lifestyle balance. So there's a lot of different areas when you think about holistic health and all of the impacts of the changes that happen in motherhood. There are so many opportunities for you to be able to make improvements in your health and wellness, and you don't have to be perfect in all of those areas either. That sounds really overwhelming for me to just list a bunch of things like that, but there are a couple areas you can start in and start making those small, feasible changes. Those are all going to help and add up. So it can feel overwhelming that there's a lot of areas, but that's actually one of the great things is you have a lot of opportunities.
That was exactly what I was going to tell you, that as you said all those areas, I felt very overwhelmed. I was like, oh my God, how do we tackle all of that? Especially since I've heard, and you can tell us if it's true, that postnatal depletion could last for years if we don't take care of it. We could be depleted for years and it could be affecting us on so many levels for many, many years unless it is addressed.
Yes, that is true. There is this assumption, and this is true to a certain extent, even if your body has everything it needs. It's very equipped. You're always going to have hormonal changes after having a baby. Totally normal, to be expected. And there's going to be that initial period where your body is adjusting and recovering from that. But if you are not optimizing what you're giving your body, so those resources in those areas that I listed, and your body doesn't have what it needs to operate optimally, that imbalance that's caused by all those changes that happen can last for years if not addressed. So a lot of moms may think, oh, I just need to wait it out, like it's just a temporary thing. And they end up waiting a very long time because the body still doesn't have what it needs. And so it's working so hard to rebalance, but it just needs some extra support.
So what do you say to a person that will come back with the argument, generations back when we didn't have this information and we didn't have all these different types of experts and holistic way of dealing with things? Well, women had babies and they were fine. What do you say to that?
Oh, there is so much popping into my head right now. I would say, first off, our modern lifestyle is very different than someone's lifestyle a long time ago. We are exposed to way many more toxins. We're more sedentary. We don't eat as well. The nutrients in our food are not as high as they used to be. So many things have changed that, just in the generation that we're living in, that make it harder for our body to recover postpartum and throughout motherhood. There's also the societal factors. I do think that we are luckily now coming into an era where moms feel more comfortable sharing the struggles they have. They feel like, hey, I have this new symptom. Is there something I can do about it? Whereas in previous generations, maybe that was just not talked about, either because of societal pressure to appear like you're doing everything perfectly, or that motherhood is just easy for you. Yes, there's so much societal pressure for that, combined with the fact that they may not have known that there were options to recover or to change those symptoms. And one example I always share is your pelvic floor. There's so much available to us now in terms of resources for that, and like pelvic floor physical therapy, whereas generations ago, that maybe wasn't a thing. And moms just assumed, oh, well, my pelvic floor behaves differently now, but it's because I had a baby and this is just my new normal. Same thing with feeling exhausted and overstimulated. Maybe current day, we feel like maybe there's something we can do to change that. But historically, it's just one of those new normal things that I have to accept now. And so I think there's a lot that plays into it, going back to your question of why is this maybe different now?
That makes a lot of sense. And you're right. There were a lot of things, and still are, in my opinion, that we take for granted and we assume it's the new normal. It's the way that it's supposed to be. And it goes hand in hand with phrases like, what did you expect? That it was going to be easy? Did you think that things weren't going to change? And it also goes hand in hand with the societal expectation that we should be sacrificing ourselves and we should be martyrs. And so we put ourselves in the background. We don't really listen to our body and our needs in order to take care of them, which then, of course, negatively contributes to the cycle and the symptoms getting worse. So I like the fact that nowadays, we get to have these conversations and there are people who can help with all of this. But to continue with that, you said all of these different types of areas where I could be affected, and this could be causing the exhaustion and the overstimulation and therefore all the other problems that come with that. And other than the fact that it sounds overwhelming that, I need to take care of all of this, people may be thinking, who do I see for all of that? Do I see 5, 6 different experts, or do they see someone like you? How does that work?
This is actually exactly what I help moms do, because every mom's needs and body and life are unique, and they're going to have the best success when they take a personalized approach and they have a personalized experience. And like we've mentioned, it can also feel super overwhelming trying to find the time and energy to navigate the process of how to do this, especially when there's so many areas to potentially address. maybe some are applicable to me, maybe some aren't. How do I even know where to start? And it can be super helpful to have a partner to walk alongside you and guide you in that process. To answer your question, I can help with all of that by guiding moms and getting back to the basics on their health and wellness and taking a very holistic approach in all of those areas, as well as an individualized approach to figure out where can they start and how can they progress during that journey. So to be more specific in what that looks like, I can summarize 6 of the key areas that I prioritize and incorporate in my own motherhood health and wellness coaching programs, where I work one-on-one with my clients. So my coaching programs include aspects such as providing that personalized guidance, support, education based on your specific challenges and symptoms, identifying and addressing your unique contributing factors and roadblocks to physically and mentally rebalancing so that you can actually specifically target those and not waste your time on any areas that may or may not be applicable to you. And then identifying holistic solutions and those individualized action steps. So these are not cookie cutter solutions for just anyone. They're collaboratively determined between the two of us based on your specific goals, your specific body, your specific preferences, and then helping develop that customized roadmap on how to get there. So the actual implementation of the action steps. And that's going to help enable sustainable progress. Also providing accountability support, which makes a huge difference in success rates for making new lifestyle changes, which can be tough. And then lastly, facilitating empowerment and self-discovery. And that's going to allow for sustained motivation and success. My goal is not for the moms I work with to need me forever. My goal is for them to feel like they have more self-awareness, they feel more resourceful, they feel more empowered in how to guide themselves on their health and wellness journey so that after our coaching wraps up, that they feel equipped for that long-term success. So the motherhood health and wellness coaching experience, it helps guide you through the whole process. So figuring out where to start, getting you tangible progress, making adjustments along the way, and then setting you up for that continued long-term success.
That's lovely. And it's definitely very helpful to have someone to not only guide you, but keep you accountable, and to have that one person. Because if I'm going to have to check out at the very least, maybe I'm not depleted and running on empty in all of the areas that you mentioned, but just the fact that I need to, at the very least, check out where I'm at in all of these areas. And if I consider, okay, well, for that one, I may need a therapist, and for the other one, I may need a nutritionist, and for the other one, I may need an endocrinologist, someone to check my hormones. And so for me, at least, putting myself in that situation, I could hardly consider going to one doctor for a checkup, especially in the first few years. But even now, my son is almost 6. And if you tell me at the same time that I'll have to go to 2-3 different types of appointments, I'd be like, no, there's no way I'm doing that. That's too much. So having one key person, one point person that I get to see every once in a while to get some personalized support and who can support me in all of these areas and take my hand and check them out with me. Am I doing okay? If I'm not, how do I calibrate? That is amazing. But because my podcast also has dads listening, and we started this conversation talking about how the partner may also be feeling while the mom is depleted and overstimulated, and how that impacts him as well. I'm wondering, what is it that he can do on his end to help himself, but also to help his wife, his partner, who may be experiencing all of this, and in essence, helping the relationship as well? Is there anything that we could give the dads who are listening in as advice, as tools that they can use to help the situation out?
Great question. I love this question because so much focus is given on the mom postpartum in terms of the changes happening for her, which are very drastic. But the partner is also going through huge changes.
Yes.
Their life is completely different. They're relationship is changing. They're adjusting to parenthood. There's a lot going on. And so that communication that I talked about earlier can be helpful for both parties, for sure. And in terms of, as far as making sure that the partner feels heard and that they're feeling supported and that they can try and figure out ways to feel connected again. But then in terms of supporting the mom, what they can do for that, it can be super helpful to pay attention to what seems to be triggering them with overstimulation and taking the initiative to take something in that area off their plate. So for example, if the mom, it's a big trigger for her getting the kids down to bed at night because she's always just past her limit by the end of the day, consider noticing that and offering to take the nighttime routine off her plate so she can decompress at the end of the day. It's also amazing to regularly voice and show appreciation and understanding for what she's going through and what she's doing for your family. That's going to do wonders for helping her feel seen and understood and valued. And lastly, do your best to remain emotionally available and an active participant in that open communication that we were discussing earlier.
That's great. That's great. And I like that you mention the perspective of the father as well, because there is such a thing as matrescence, so the shift of identity for the fathers. If we don't know about matrescence, the shift of identity for moms, we definitely don't know about matrescence, and we don't give it enough credit, the change that they're going through. And we've heard by now that there is such a thing as postnatal depression for the partner as well. And so it's important to not just look at the partner as someone who, come on, stop being a baby and being jealous of your baby and cut your wife, the birthing partner, some slack. They're going through so many changes that you're not going through. Of course, it is true. The changes for the mom are more massive, much bigger. They include hormones and physical changes that aren't there for the husband or the partner. But at the same time, as long as we keep on discounting how the partner is affected, they feel unseen, they feel unheard. And if they're coming into the conversation feeling hurt and isolated, unappreciated, unadmired is something that I hear a lot. They're no longer admired. They're seen as incompetent a lot of times. Then how do we expect them to be able to give support and to get in this conversation with a listening ear as well? So both sides have every right to come into this conversation feeling hurt and demanding that they be the ones that are heard. But it's extremely important to make sure that we recognize that as much as I may be valid in what I'm going through, the other side also has valid reasons to not be feeling great either.
Yes, beautifully said. Because it's not a competition, right? It's not
exactly
who's experiencing more or less. The fact is you're both experiencing a lot right now, and a lot has changed. And focusing on how you can stay being a team and supporting each other in any way that you can is the best that you can do, right?
Right. And it is true. It does become a competition, and each person is just trying to shine a light on what it is that they're contributing and that they're doing. Is there something that you have found that contributes to this, why it all of a sudden becomes competition and we have to try so hard to return to feeling like a team again instead of antagonists?
I feel like it's because of that feeling unseen or misunderstood. Again, you're both struggling in different ways, and you're both putting in a lot of effort in different ways. And so when you're each having the mindset of focusing on your own struggles and feeling like they are more pronounced than maybe what your partner is experiencing, any conversation about their needs or something that's going to, in your mind, even more shift the balance away from you can feel almost like a personal attack, or again, like you're not being seen. So I think because of that, it can turn into more of a competition. And you feel like any attention or efforts to help the other person takes away from the needs that you need as well. And it can be an either or situation in your mind.
Perfectly said. I agree with every word. Before we wrap up this conversation, there are two things that I'm thinking. The one of them is in a conversation we had before we press record, you were talking about identity. And you mentioned how you help moms balance their identity specifically as part of their well-being journey and how this supports the connection with the partner as well. So can you walk us through specifically about that part, what it may look like? How do you support a mom in her identity shift?
This is huge because you can feel very abrupt after you become a mom and you now have this amazing new part of your life that you are so excited about and you love, but now you're wondering, how do I have time for all of it? Am I solely a mom now? You kind of have that identity crisis a little bit. Helping moms figure out what is that new enhanced identity going to look like? Because you're never going to be exactly the same as you were before because you do have this new amazing aspect of your life now. So it's finding that new identity that you want to have that could be even way better than your old identity. I personally think motherhood is great for that. You suddenly have this new perspective on what is worth your time and your energy, and things become very clear pretty quickly what is draining you or not benefiting you and your life anymore versus the things that you really feel passionate about and you just feel so fulfilled when you do them and are really enhancing your life. So I help in that same process that I described earlier about my own motherhood, health, and wellness coaching programs. Part of that is fulfillment, sense of community, sense of identity. We layer in all of that. And as you work on your health and wellness from a physical standpoint, that it's so cool to see just naturally, you're also going to see improvements in the more mental symptoms that you're feeling, whether that be fulfillment, identity, etc. And by also layering in those community aspects, the relationship aspects, are there any toxic relationships in your life, either at home or with friends or at work? When all of that is considered together and you're also working on your physical health and wellness, it is incredible to see the transformation that can happen and seeing moms feel just so fulfilled again and like they have that balance back.
It's really, really important to take the time to process all of that. That's how I started working with mothers, and that's how I am here today, because I realized that our identity shifts, but we don't really take the time to honor that shift. We don't take the time to adjust to it. We just power through, carry on, and continue as if it's just another role we took on and let's just go and do it. And if we actually slow down and process what is happening, we can create an identity that we are so proud of. And like you said, it can be a much more advanced, developed version of us. Motherhood gives us the opportunity to really hone in on the things that we love, to focus, to find what it is that we want to spend our time on and what we don't. And it rewires our brains. It gives us different capacities. It truly shines the light on what is important. And it's such a shame that we celebrate adolescence and we celebrate other types of milestones that we hit, but we haven't yet normalized taking the time to celebrate and honor the process of matrescence so that we are able to bloom in this period instead of shrivel because we didn't grieve the old and we didn't honor the new and we didn't integrate. So I love the perspective, and I truly appreciate the fact that you offer a way that we can look at all of this holistically. It feels like a breath of fresh air, having one person guide through all of this and honor the entire process. It's super important what it is that you do.
Thank you. And beautifully said. I totally agree about honoring this period because you're right. It's not celebrated the way that it should be. as a mom, you almost have this feeling of like, oh, this is normal and I should just accept it because no one really makes a big deal of it.
Yeah, I'm not that special, right?
I totally agree. And I think layering that in is so powerful, and understanding that this is not a period of sacrifice. This is not a period of missing the old you, or it doesn't have to be, but going through that journey and exploring what that new identity is for you is actually a really exciting thing.
Yes. So before we go, I would like to ask you if you could whisper one small thing to the ear of an overwhelmed parent so that you can give them some kind of reassurance to keep going, to be able to honor this process. What would that be?
Ooh, I'll give 2 sentences if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
First, you're not alone, because this is an incredibly common challenge that partners experience in parenthood related to, overstimulation and trying to find that sense of connection again. And second, the great news is, as we discussed, this is absolutely not some new normal that you just have to accept. You have way more influence over your motherhood and parenthood experience than you may think. And you absolutely have the power to find connection and fulfillment in your relationship with your partner again, and also in your overall family life. I'd love to leave everyone with that feeling of feeling valid in their experience and also having hope for change.
Beautiful. It also left me feeling empowered that I have the power to change this. This is not the way it's supposed to be. This is not something I just have to accept and have to go through every single day of my life if it's not something that's making me feel fulfilled and joyful. So thank you for opening up that window of hope for everyone listening, for both the mom who may be overstimulated and overwhelmed, but also the partner who may feel like he is not getting through and he's not able to help as much as he may try. So I hope that everyone listening in will make sure to visit your website. I want you to give us all of that before we go to download the freebie. So if you could tell us the links, but I'll also have everything linked in the show notes for everyone to be able to find you, to find your resources, and get more help and continue this discussion with you.
For those listening, I'd love to hear from you. The best way to get in touch with me and to learn more about how I support moms is to visit my website. So that's www.notablywell.com. That's NOTABLYWELL. And you can also follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Notably Well. And I also offer free discovery calls. So if you're considering working together and want to discuss further or have questions, you're welcome to book a free call with me. And that link can be found on my website, and I believe will also be included in the show notes.
Perfect. And how about the free resource that you mentioned about regulating in the moment when I feel overstimulated?
Yes, that can also be found on my website. There's a tab called Free Resources. So if you click that, that will be on that page.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for everything that you have shared with us today and for what it is that you do and how you help moms. It is very impactful work, and I'm so glad to have had you come on this podcast.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure for me too. This was such a fun and empowering conversation.
Thank you. Bye.